Testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we have levels, and we are recording. I'm here with Dr. Boyce Watkins at the end of the All Black National Convention, and I just wanted to get some of your reflections of this event that it was yours in the making. You and your brother started it, and now your lovely wife plays a critical role being the therapist for people to get out of their comfort zone and be conscious in their financial journey. What are your reflections of the event so far? How many years has it been, and what are your reflections of this go-around?
This is the 9th All Black National Convention that we've had, and we started in Atlanta in 2015.
Okay.
And it came to me in a dream. I literally went to sleep, took a nap, and I listened to the dreams that come to me in my naps because I kind of believe that that's the universe, God, and the subconscious kind of working together to send a message that needs to be heard.
Really?
And yeah. Not only did the idea to have the conference come to mind, but the name of it popped into my head. And when an idea is that clear to me, that tells me I have to do it.
God, I could totally relate to that.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so I called my friend, Dr. Lene Javette, and I said, so Lene, I have an idea. Let's create a convention. We're going to call it the All Black National Convention. And I want to do it in 3 weeks. And we had no money. It's 3 weeks. It was crazy. Yeah. So we went to the Shrine of the Black Madonna in Atlanta.
Wait. Did the 3-week time span come in your dream as well?
It came from my lack of experience. like sometimes you're too stupid to know something's impossible.
I mean, that's how things happen, though.
Yeah.
That's how things happen. Welcome to Rhythm of Life. I'm Steve Ordauer. I had the distinct honor of covering the All Black National Convention held just outside of Chicago in Lombard, Illinois, in October of this year, 2024. And I felt as if I was invited to an important family meeting that was filled with the spirit of love, self-reflection, critical thinking, combined with a willingness to have tough conversations, empowerment, and an absolute commitment to the Black community. Spearheaded by Dr. Boyce Watkins, who created the Black Business School that provides culturally relevant business education to the Black community. This convention's purpose is to chart the course of the future of the Black community. In his words, by educating our children, building economic independence, and supporting our own, we secure the freedom, success, and spiritual elevation of generations to come. This convention is about taking ownership of our future. Over 60 experts from around the world came to share their wisdom over 3 days on topics such as economics, education, health, politics, and spirituality. Stay tuned to learn about the All Black National Convention through our limited series about this extraordinary event. The first episode is an interview with the head of the Financial Therapy Department of the Black Business School, Dr. Alicia Watkins, who is a licensed clinical social worker and psychotherapist specializing in anxiety, depression, and life transitions in all age groups. She provides culturally specific therapy for attendees of the school. Thanks for doing this. It's
that's great. I love stocks. I will say that, but really? You can put me to sleep by talking about stocks.
Well, I'll mention it. If I talk to your husband today, I'll say, hey, Bobby.
He literally, when he does, when we go to hotels and it's not possible for us to be apart when he does his videos, I will. I listen to him talk, and it's gotten to the point where it actually puts me to sleep. I think it's something with his voice. Now, what he's saying is interesting, and I love it. My brother is a broker. My brother is here. He's a stockbroker.
Oh, your brother's
here? Or former stockbroker.
Okay, because I interviewed your husband's brother, but your brother's here.
My brother is here. Oh. You know what? When Boyce wanted to start he wanted to do his options class. Mm-hmm. I said, you know what? He said, I know in theory it really works. And he was doing trading options himself. Mm-hmm. I said, wait, let me call my brother, because my brother was a stockbroker for many, many years. Oh. And he was vice president of something. Okay. I don't remember. I was in high school.
Okay.
And so I called my brother on speakerphone, and Boyce was like, hey, I know the theory of it. I got a PhD. I've never been a broker. Like, my brother was a broker in Chicago for many, many years.
Right.
And Boyce is like, can I run this by you to make sure this makes sense? And my brother was like, yeah, Yeah, it totally, like, yes, absolutely, totally do it. I make money on it myself. I trade, I do it kind of lightly. And I'm looking at my brother like, you've been making money trading options and you never even talked to us about it. So Boyce has the knowledge, right? But my brother had the on the level trading experience as a broker. He worked for a brokerage firm. That was his first job out of college. Oh, wow. So their like conversation, that was how they connected initially.
Oh, interesting.
was with trading stocks. And so Boyce has made quite a bit of money just off of friends' suggestions.
That's huge because it's funny because my wife has an MBA. And she's a financial director for AT&T, and she's been extremely good with money. Okay. Me, on the other hand, came from two parents were not good with money. Quite the opposite. So I learned a lot from her. And then when I started talking about stock options, she was like, because she was taught that stock options are extremely risky. Now, but the thing is, and I had to kind of talk her off the ledge because we make these decisions together, generally speaking. And I said, look, Dr. Watkins is different. He's mitigating the risk, and he's all about, the long money, not the short, quick, get rich quick schemes at all. And I started to like walk her through it. Now she's like, yeah, okay, good.
Yeah. So my brother did have to say, listen, you have to be able to protect yourself.
Oh, totally.
You have to be able to do that. And Boyce played around with it. He played around. He actually took his own money. And I remember him talking to me about it because he wanted to try it on himself first before he launched all of this into the public. So I have a front row seat to all of Boyce's like decisions. And so we took some money, put it in, and he started doing, then he started being risky. He said, okay, that wasn't good. So he purposely messed it up just so that he could test out the system. And then he, in his studies and talking to my brother in his own practice and how we talk to each other about it, I think he really has a really solid plan. Now, personally, totally. I have a different investment personality.
Okay.
I am an invest and go. Okay. I am never draw down. I mean, I like options, but it's just, that to me, that's a boring way to spend your time. I'd rather spend my time doing something else. But I just love that Boyce can do it for us, and then we don't have to worry about it. Really, think about it this way. Boyce is a public figure. And what happens is that there's just all this noise and all this negativity online, and you never know. And it gets to the point where you don't know what the future may bring. And so Boyce was like, I want to be able to live off of my stock options so that in case something happens online, like his entire Instagram account was shut down.
I know.
Over 400,000, almost 500,000 people. And that's not the first time he's had very lucrative accounts shut down. He said, I have to stop my dependence on the internet. At one point, the YouTube money was great, it'd be like, whoa, this is wonderful. And we started realizing that YouTube started pulling back. They started monitoring what you say and how you say it, and the money wasn't going in. So he's like, I don't want to be dependent on social media and dependent on these other things. He takes, a lot of what he does and he puts it into the stock market, and that's his stability.
Oh, totally. And, it's not that I didn't know this already, but he just kind of made it very, very clear in terms of, if you're too like pro-black, I mean, for real, if you really want to empower Black people in this country, you will be vilified. You will be cast aside. You will be shadow banned or whatever. And because the censorship is real. I mean, it's so powerful. And then when the pandemic happened, oh my God, you're just like, it became like, whoa, right in your face. And what was amazing to me is so many people still didn't see it. I'm like, what? And it's so blatantly obvious. It's so brazen, so how, for instance, public figures are just misconstrued and mischaracterized, like RFK Jr. is a perfect example. Yeah. And your husband, yes. I'm sure he's vilified, and I would imagine people think he's like a hate monger and all this other stuff. And I'm
Well,
like, yeah,
see, I don't want him to do that. And so sometimes
him to do that, or
I don't-
other people to do that to him, because I don't
want
see him that way at all.
I don't want people to do that to him.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, not talking about finances necessarily, talking about issues like in my sort of wheelhouse.
Yeah, he
That's
does
where we get into some disagreement, so to speak. So we do these pillow talks.
I know.
Do you ever listen to those?
I listen to his whole podcast. I listen to almost every episode. I've listened to him for about 2 or 3 years, pretty consistently.
Oh, that's funny because we don't agree on everything.
And that's great.
But like sometimes I do, and I'll say it on the pillow talk because it is our conversations. It's raw. It's
I know.
real conversations that we have.
That's what's so captivating about everything he does.
Yeah, so it is. It's raw and real, and I'm just like, okay, you don't want to be this negative old man hating everything and shaking your fist in the air. Like, you don't want to be one of those people because it's making you look older and it's taking its toll on your mental health. So I always try to lighten things up a little bit. I tried to say, yeah, these things are important, but at the same time, like, not everything is going to hell in a handbasket. Like, there are some great things. And so I try to get him to pull things into a little more of a balanced way. I feel like he can get a little extreme, but I don't know. That's just his personality, though. That's how he's always been. Remember,
you are a blessing for him.
Really?
The more you're talking about it, the more I'm recognizing. I mean, I used to say this about my wife. Like, I've said this to my friends many times that without her, I'd probably be dead or in jail. I mean, and
really?
I mean, and I mean, is that a bit of an exaggeration? Maybe, but maybe not.
Maybe
I don't know.
not.
But, I just know that there's this grounding that happens in a marriage that generally works pretty well for the most part. I mean, of course, all marriages have their ups and downs, but the stability and this grounding that happens is so important for most men. I mean, most guys I know are, have a part of them that's kind of nuts. And then and I'm a little bit nuts, but I need that stability. And I'm glad that I met somebody who provides that for me. I hope that I give a fraction back to her as much as she's given to me in that regard. But I think that for the way you're talking, you're such a blessing to him because you allow this other part of the relationship so that he can see these things that he may not be aware of if he wasn't with you.
That's interesting because he has that effect on me too.
Oh, great.
Like, and I hate to say this because I know religious people would be all mad, but sometimes I will joke around him. I don't usually say it out loud. I'll just say like, all praise is due to my Lord and Savior, Boyce Watkins. Say stuff like that. And I mean it. Like, he has been such first of all, he's been such a beautiful friend to me. He's always been my favorite friend. I have been the one keeping our friendship together.
I was about to say, yeah, you told me that already. Like, I've met you before.
Yeah, it's like, he's just so great. Like, he would come in town every couple of months or so. And I would just like, when's Boyce coming to town? I would stop everything. We would go salsa dancing.
And now, fast forward to today, now you started this incredible business school with. Were you in the beginnings when the Black Business School started?
You know what's fascinating was that when Boyce and I started dating, the Black Business School was just started.
With him and his brother? Is that
with him and his brother?
Okay, Lawrence.
He had another business going. I can't remember the name of it, but it's still running. But he started the Black Business School almost like a reset for himself, and he started that with his brother, and then we started dating. It was really interesting,
What year about did you say?
This was like 2017, 2016.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And that was when, and I never like. God, I gotta tell the story now. I feel like I gotta tell the story. I don't know if it's if you want me to, but we have a mutual friend that's actually my friend. I went to high school with her, and it was her. She's one of those people who celebrates her birthday for the whole month.
I gotta do that.
And so I felt kind of indebted to her because I love my friends, But I was like, anyway, I got kind of bothered by her a little bit, to be honest with you. And so I had agreed to do something and I did not want to do it.
Okay.
So I said, what can I do? I said, wait, let me call Boyce. Because if Boyce comes along with us, then it'll just feel like something new.
Okay.
So I called him and I said, Boyce, he picked up. Normally he doesn't pick up. I said, hey, we're hanging out with our mutual friend. And I said, you know her? He's like, yeah. I was like, I don't really want to go, but if you come with me, then I'll feel better about it. Oh. And he was like, okay, I'll come. I'm not doing anything.
Okay.
And so we went. And he always has a girlfriend. I'm like, who you dating now? What's going on? You know, I'm single. I had just gotten divorced. So I was single. And I was like, so whatever's going on with his situation, he's like, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking about this girl and this girl. I'm like, that is so great. I said, well, you know what? When I start dating again, eventually we'll go out on double dates again. So not even thinking, eventually he just confessed his love to me one day.
He did?
And I said, Boyce, I never thought you were ever interested in me because when we met, I was 19. Uh-huh. He always had a girlfriend. I was single. Mm-hmm. And he was dating one girl and he was single and then he'd go and date someone else. I don't know. He got skills apparently. But I was single for such a long time. And these girlfriends, they don't look anything like me. They're nothing like me. So I was just really blown away. And I saw, of course, this other side of Boyce and then I fell in love.
And so now how did you guys hatch the idea of you starting a therapy department within the school? Which is, I remember when I first heard that, which is it's so insightful. It's such a great idea. But how did that idea form and how did you implement it? And how did that take shape?
That is interesting. I was, again, my Lord and Savior. all praises to the Lord and Savior, Dr. Boyce Watkins. Are you religious,
by the way?
I'm Catholic.
Oh, really?
So I guess that doesn't make me very religious.
Really?
Yeah, I'm born Catholic.
My wife is Catholic and she's still Catholic. We raised our kids in two faiths.
Really?
Yeah, I'm Jewish and she's Catholic. And she's German and she speaks German. And my friends are like, what?
German? Yeah, oh my gosh.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, you know, that's for a Jewish person.
Yes.
It's kind of crazy. But, you know,
I wonder what her family thought and what your family thought. I bet they were like, what are you doing?
Everybody was like, what are you doing? But I made a documentary about it. It was on public television about interfaith marriage. They're brought up in a school. I'll let you know about it. It's called Leaps of Faiths. And we followed these couples for 6 years and many couples about interfaith marriage and
it's
overcoming.
Possible.
I mean, it's really about acceptance. Yeah. It's just really about it. It really, really, really comes down to acceptance. And it's a powerful paradigm, even beyond what the documentary is about. That's really what it's about. And it's really, really amazing. But I mean, to have a therapy department in the Black Business School that's culturally specific to deal with in a nuanced and sensitive way to what Black people are going through is really an amazing thing. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I will. And when I was starting my private practice, because of Boyce's influence, really, I started realizing back into practice after getting tenure and promotion at my university, I started realizing that, you know, all this trauma, I was reminded of getting back into therapy and realizing that these families are dealing with some big traumatic issues.
Totally.
So I got the trauma certification, and through my the pillow talks and the conversations I was having with Boyce, there was a piece to it that was so similar to financial trauma. And I started applying some of the trauma research and literature and started realizing that it is having an effect on how we spend our money.
Totally.
And through those conversations, he's like, we have got to do something. So we started doing courses and we had our workbook together about financial anxiety and financial trauma. And he's going through Claude Anderson's information
Dr.
to say,
Claude Anderson.
yes, stop giving us praise. Stop saying we acknowledge slavery. Where's the economics there that can help us? And so it was just a great kind of development through conversations and processing the things that I was learning and having it apply to the families. So Boyce is working with families about generational wealth and building this wealth. And I said, Boyce, the best legacy you can leave behind are making sound decisions in your family, and is having an effect on income. And of course, Boyce loves talking about single parent homes, destruction of the family, how economically these families suffer above and beyond other families.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard that you had a therapy department, the first thing in my mind was, that is so powerful, because you're dealing with the fundamental root of the issue in terms of shifting perspective. It really comes down to perspective. If you relate to money in a certain way such that you're coming from a place of scarcity, well, that'll play out in a very specific way. A lot of what I learned through listening to your husband for years is that a lot of Black people are very scared to invest in the stock market. Why? Because they're coming from a place of scarcity and they could lose it, which is true. They could. However, and the thing that really attracted me to your husband is that his mission is authentic.
Yes.
He's putting his best foot forward. And when you're talking about learning about financial strategies, particularly in the stock market, there's so many swindlers out there.
Oh my God.
And it's ridiculous, but it was obvious. I mean, I happen to agree with a lot of what he says, and I appreciate the expansion of my perspective on culture and society as a whole. However, I know that he's giving what he can in the most positive way possible, because his mission is authentic. And I know that. So, he's going to be giving whatever he's giving through the Black Business School, he's going to be there's a huge dose of integrity there. That's what I'm trying to say. He's true to his word. And, I had a father like that. He was a mission-driven man. It was clear. And after his funeral, I found out that he had a wife and child that was killed in World War II. So he was in D-Day. He was in he saw a lot of action in World War II. But then when he got back here, from the rest of his life, he was like on a mission. He was instrumental in the election of Harold Washington and Danny K. Davis and Carol Moseley Braun and Senator Paul Simon. Yes. He was an activist. I mean, like heavy, like he against all of his very, very close civil rights friends said, please don't go down to Mississippi and testify on behalf of this Black man that was accused of raping a white woman. They said, please don't do that. He went down, helped get the guy exonerated, but yet he was beat up and almost killed. I think there's something about being on a mission that's beautiful and liberating. And I think that's where your husband is, for sure. No doubt about it, because he's very clear, like, look, he's so matter of fact about it. It's like, if you're too pro-Black, well, there's going to be repercussions of that. Now, if you're one of the managers, as he says, and please forgive the phrase, I'm only quoting your husband, the Negro manager. Oh yes. And there are plenty of them out here. You start to realize there's a system in place that's really, really powerful, and it doesn't seem like there is. But, you look at the two-party system, and he helped me kind of look at it through a broader lens in terms of, yes, there's a huge difference between Democrats and Republicans, but yet they're part of a system. And
it's just fingers of the same hand, right?
And really at the very top, you see the corporate influence has steadily gotten stronger and stronger. And so you start realizing, like, why was Bernie Sanders not allowed to do his thing with the Democratic Party? I wonder, was he really like on the verge of, like, he's a real reformer and been consistent with his message? Maybe that had something to do with it. So to get to the top of the system, you have to compromise something. There's no way, because it's a system based on money, and the money comes from the corporations, and they peddle the influences they see fit. It's just that simple. So he's dealing with all that in a very proactive way, and you've got to be battle tested.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm a social worker, right? I believe in my social systems. I'm trained as a social worker. So some of the things that Boyce was saying, I was like, okay, Boyce, I don't really know. Some of the things that he was saying that was like not throwing his weight and support around Kamala Harris. And he's like, oh, I did another podcast about Kamala Harris. And I'm like, don't tell me it was negative. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, I think we're scrutinizing Black women a little too much. So there's that dynamic, right?
That's really interesting.
I'm like, because I identify with her. She's multi-race. I'm not multi-race, but she's multi-race. We can just acknowledge that.
Right.
But I identify with that on so many different levels. And I've been in that situation where I felt scrutinized. So there's a dynamic. It's just called a dynamic. We'll just leave it there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until D.L. Hughley called Boyce
I heard about
and
that.
cussed him out. And I said, wow. And threatened his life. He actually said, as soon as I see you, I'm going to kill you. There was witnesses there. So I took a bath and I came out of that bath and I said, you know what, Boyce, I have to apologize to you. He said, what? I said, I thought you were really going a little in. You were going too hard on the Democrats. And I said, you know what? I don't think that you really are. I think that because D.L. Hughley called you and made that statement to you, I think you're onto something. And because why would D.L. Hughley care about little old Boyce Watkins, who's not even on TV? He's banned from television. He won't go on. He just has a YouTube channel. It's like maybe he did that video, maybe 5,000 people watched that video. Like, why? So that tells us that Boyce is making an impact because D.L. Hughley's got to be on their payroll.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. And it's what's interesting, though, is, just getting back to the dynamic a little bit. I mean, I totally agree that we're looking at a duopoly that is that does not allow for real reform. And if you are trying to be a real reformer, you will get vilified, you will get misconstrued, you will get mischaracterized. And there's a very powerful apparatus that's very good at doing this.
Yes, they are.
Extremely good. And you will, like Malcolm X said, I remember seeing this quote where it's like, be careful with the media because they'll have you loving the oppressor and hating the oppressed.
Yes.
And there's so much truth to that. I mean, when, like, for instance, when we did an episode on oh my gosh, Fred Hampton of the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
And we did a whole podcast about him and we interviewed his attorney. And I got to listen to speeches of his and interaction and him being interviewed. And I didn't really know about him that much. Boy, is he an impressive young man. Impressive intellect. And he was making coalitions between not just poor Black people, but poor white people who were flying a Confederate flag, and he was able to get them relating to each other.
You're nationalist.
It was like amazing, amazing. And he was part of a program, COINTELPRO, that assassinated him, no doubt about it. And we went through that. But the press made the Black Panthers look like a terrorist organization, for sure. And they were anything but. They were responding to terrorism.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why we have breakfast in schools now came from the Black Panther movement.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Yeah, my dad was part of it. It's interesting you brought up your father in Chicago. That's really interesting because your dad and my dad would probably, my dad graduated from University of Chicago in 1970.
Okay.
So he was there getting his social work degree at University of Chicago from 1968 to 1970. Okay. He showed up, they interviewed you. He showed up to the interview with a dashiki. It was right after, 68 is
sure.
It's a very important year.
That's right when I was born.
Yeah, that was when my brother was born. So now I know how old you are. That's when my brother was born. But, my dad was he wanted to dodge the draft. So got married to my mom, had my brother. He was like not trying to go and involve himself. He said, I'm not fighting that white man's war. I mean, my dad was kind of like radical like that.
It's interesting. Radical is really a matter of perspective. Because that's just, this came up to me just the other day. And I was thinking, what's radical to one person is very normal for another, because I could totally relate to that. I didn't hear anything this weekend. And I sat in on a lot of the seminars nothing sounded radical to me at all. I mean, I'm not a typical person. I didn't have a
Right.
typical upbringing, but what is radical is really, really a matter of perspective. And so, it may be radical for some people who are here the first time to get out of their comfort zones, which you're
Yeah.
helping people do. And one of the things I definitely wanted to touch on was your money scripts.
Yeah, the money
That
scripts.
was so powerful. Could you talk a little bit about what that is and what you talked about the other day?
Yeah, money scripts relate to how our beliefs about money. And the thing is that we are buying things. Our perspective about money is subconscious. It's the messages that we get about money. It's almost like you're watching a commercial and they're telling you Snickers is what you crave. And you're at the store, you don't even know, you're not even conscious. Your behavior is just to grab a Snickers and put it on the conveyor belt because it's what you crave. They're telling you. McDonald's is telling you, you got to have it. I'm loving it. That's what it is. I'm loving it. It's McDonald's. And I mean, if you really understand marketing and how it works, I think everybody needs to watch that show, Mad Men.
Mad Men.
Mad Men.
Oh, isn't that about the advertising execs?
Advertising executives on Manhattan. So it's like Manhattan advertising.
Like
so
in
mad.
the 50s, 60s?
Yes, in the 50s, 60s. Watch that series. You will understand the subconscious mind and how you play out these scripts written for you, and you're not conscious of them. And the scripts that you're playing is keeping you, well, first of all, it's related to your financial income. It's related to how you invest money. It's related to how you even see money, what kind of car you buy, how you spend things. Like my dad taught me, my dad said a car gets you from point A to point B. That's what a car does.
Yes.
He never had this status, like money status. I'm important because I have this car, because I have these things. And it's so really interesting because I worked in Chicago when I was first starting out as a social worker. I used to seriously work with low income families. And I would be trying to talk to them about saving money.
Did you roll up in a Benz or something?
No, I had a Honda Accord that was like old. I had a Honda, or maybe it was a Saturn or whatever it was.
Okay.
But the thing is that here I am talking to them, and I'm bringing this up about managing their money. I'm working with low income families, and they're looking at me like I am trying to spend money on my next meal. And whatever money I have left over, I'm going to get my hair done. What are you talking about? I got to get a man. I need to get my nails done. I have to look good. So I have to see it from their perspective. It's just like they can't see past whatever the immediate thing is. But again, when I talked about graduation, I was overwhelmed. I went my very first year out. I went to the high school graduation out of University of Chicago. I got all these theories in my head. I'm ready to go in as the social worker, and graduation would come around. I worked in high schools.
Okay.
Graduation would come around, and you would think like the money that they spent on all of this material things and all of these things, and they did not have the money, investments, and they weren't interested in saving money and all of this. They just weren't thinking that they were going to live that long. This was the end. This graduation is the big celebration. High school graduation, the big celebration of their life. So it really is a program that you're playing out. Of course, what I'm saying is that it's influenced by culture. Things that are important in our life, you feel like you're out of it. You're not important, and your happiness is tied to so much of how much you spend. And it's hard when you're dealing with a group of people who's just all thinking about immediate concerns. They're not able to think about the future. They're on this rat wheel of, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and they're in this sort of thing. There's no way that they could run these money scripts, which is quite possible to save. It is possible to save.
But you gotta change the perspective from a fundamental way. It's not easy to do.
Stop spending money on this big prom.
Well, I mean, and you can say that till you're blue in the face, but until you get somebody to understand, you're trying to purchase your self-esteem with that purse.
Yeah.
Please don't do that. And this is why you're doing it. And to break it down in a fundamental way. I mean, I know your husband has said that a million times. And, and that on top of this horrendously unhealthy culture that's being fed
Yes.
to all Americans, but specific emphasis on Black Americans is atrocious.
Spend so much money.
Oh.
We spend so much money on stuff that is just mean nothing.
But
and
we
tie so much of our happiness and prestige to it. I mean, it really just do without.
Well, you know, and it really speaks to the importance of a real fundamental need for genuine self-esteem.
Yeah.
Because and as you're talking about this, and as I've listened to your husband and you for a while, it became extremely clear that for some odd reason, I've never, ever cared what people think of me. Like really,
Really, you've never gone through?
It's
That's
nice
beautiful.
It's nice to be liked. No,
Uh-huh.
I won't say totally, but there has been a healthy dose of I don't care. And it does, and I don't know how that came. I think it came from my father. I'm not sure exactly. And I didn't really. I just always kind of took it for granted until I got older, and still I really started listening to you two, and I realized how powerful that is.
Gosh, how did you get like that? 'Cause
I do not know.
Not the case.
I don't know, and I didn't grow up in a lavish lifestyle. My parents weren't good with money. I just, I guess I don't. There was something about whatever was going on for me. I always felt like I grew up in a pretty good community, and it was a real village. It was a real strong sense of community in Hyde Park where I grew up. It was very diverse. My dad was not connected to the university.
Okay.
Although he was, there were he used to hang out with a lot of intellectuals at the place. I don't know if you know the diner, they call it Valois. Do you remember that on 53rd?
Oh, 53rd, yeah.
Right, 53rd and Hyde Park Boulevard, and all the politicians would be in there and talking. But he was just a really soulful guy, and he also produced a gospel television show. I don't know if you ever heard of Jubilee Showcase.
No,
it was a gospel television show on ABC for many years. But so it was very abnormal. So I just, for instance, my son was starting to feel this when we very rarely buy them new stuff, our kids. And he's like, well, why can't I get anything new? And I said, well, you do get new stuff, but you're growing so quickly. So we go to the resale shop for a lot of the clothes, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. And we don't need to purchase our self-esteem that way. And I would talk to him about this. I said, but when you need something, this allows us to spend money on things that really are important and that matter. Like when we need a house, when you need a new baseball bat, when you need things that you can't buy in this particular way, and we have healthcare bills. We need to make sure that we prioritize that, and we have investments, and these are the things that really matter. And it's just getting your kids grounded in what matters. And I see the young kids at the All Black National Convention, and it's amazing to me. It blows me away because you're implanting this perspective, as opposed to when they get older, you have to shift the perspective, and there's resistance to that at first, I would imagine, because you got to get people out of their comfort zone, particularly with these deeply embedded money scripts.
Yeah, the deeply embedded money scripts are very real. But I really want to comment on the fact that, okay, I do believe you don't care what people think because you married a Catholic German person. So that really makes, I believe you for real. You were ahead of the time. And of course, I grew up in Catholic school. So clothes, you just wore your uniform.
Right.
There's no way unless you have everybody had the same penny loafers on.
Right.
And so it was, there's a good thing about going to parochial school and just having everybody. And I think that's the reason why they had uniforms back then.
Yeah.
But the money scripts is some of these money scripts don't serve you, right? But
totally.
A money script that I know I talked about that is really good is just to be vigilant. Mm-hmm. Is to be conscious and to be aware of what it is. And it's just, I don't know, I think it's fascinating. I think because of my upbringing, I've never wanted to be flashy. I've never been into, I've never really,
Same.
Boyce was like, oh, Alicia, I think you're so beautiful. And I'm like, wait, I hope you're talking about the inside, because the outside could change at any moment.
Totally.
And it's probably because my parents, My parents had me, they were like in their 30s.
Okay.
They had been married for quite some time.
Oh, okay.
And they all had advanced degrees in child education and stuff. So they were all, I'm a second generation therapist. My dad was a social worker.
Oh, wow.
And my mom was a school teacher therapist.
Oh, interesting.
So I just feel like I just grew up just differently from everyone.
Yeah,
we didn't have a lot of money, but everybody was educated.
Oh.
And I think that's I think that's kind of strange or unique.
That's
It was weird growing up Black when all my friends had been spanked. And my parents were like, I was like, no, my parents sat down and talked to me about what I was doing wrong and made me feel bad about it. Guilty. I felt guilty because Catholic school, of course.
Yeah.
The guilt was there.
Yeah.
So, it was I just feel like it's a little unique. So maybe I come from it in that sort of way, not sticking to materialism. I know for a fact, Boyce never would have been interested in me if I had a money script of money status. If I had to use my money for status, if I had to use my money, if I was greedy in any way, what's fascinating, I had lost contact with Boyce digitally because I was raising children, trying to get tenure, just really focused on that because it's hard getting tenure and getting promoted and publishing articles that I couldn't find my Facebook page. I forgot the password to it. I didn't know how to do a password recovery. It wasn't until Boyce and I started dating that he put Facebook on my phone.
Oh.
So I wasn't connected. I had no idea. We started dating and then we went out together. And I was like, why is everybody trying to take a picture with you? What the hell are you doing? He was like, he never talked about his business. He never even really, but you know what? It never came up because if I ever wanted to get a hold of him, I would just call him on the phone. Like, why am I reaching out to you on social media? I don't care. Exactly. I'm not even I have no social media presence until I met him.
Right.
So I was really out of the whole loop.
You are reminding me of my wife.
And I didn't know. And I was like, why are these people like, Boyce? I'm like, oh, come on. It's really, you just discover. So it truly is, it just came to be. But I'm uncomfortable with this whole weekend, really. Like, I'm not used to this attention.
Oh,
I'm not used to,
interesting.
Everybody wanting my autograph and wanting to take pictures with me and all of this. I've tried to get used to it, but I don't think I'll ever get used to that.
Yeah. Well, it's, while you're talking, all I can think of and just confirming what I already kind of knew, which is you're just a grounded individual in who you are. And my wife's that way.
Okay.
And I think, and your husband's that way. And I've always felt like that. And that's why, I married my wife because, on the surface, there's differences. I mean, I grew up in Hyde Park. She grew up in a homogeneous area on the south suburbs, all Catholic, mostly all white. I mean, very different backgrounds. But on the subjects of what really matters, we're very similar.
Yeah.
Very, very similar. Like what it is to be, to generate a sense of community, what it is like to be there for somebody in need, what it is like to give back to society, what it's like to actually not be flashy and all about that other nonsense that you were speaking of earlier in terms of, we are so would be embarrassed if people thought that of us, like we're ostentatious in that way. Whereas most people are saying, oh, look at this wonderful vacation I just went to. And I would be so I never, ever, not that there's anything wrong with that. If people want to share with their friends, that's great. I have no issue with that. That's fine. I just wouldn't do that because my sense of other people viewing that and comparing just comes up for me, and I just wouldn't want to do that. It's what I share certain things with friends for sure. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people do that because it's like they're self-validating themselves, and it's not healthy.
You don't want to put your esteem on how much money you have in the bank. Your self-esteem can't be on, even for a lot of men, what type of woman you date. You don't want like a trophy wife. You want to put, I'm only great because I have a trophy wife. Like Elon Musk and some other people I suspect are like that, because I've heard what their wives say.
Oh,
They're divorced.
okay. Uh-huh.
Their exes say,
Right,
he
right.
wanted me to have blonde hair. I think Elon Musk's wife.
Oh, really?
Was like putting too much emphasis on external appearance. And the thing is like I'm only as good as my checking account and what I can say that I have.
Wow.
And it's, first of all, our entire economy is built on the fact that we are searching for this happiness and contentment outside of ourselves.
Totally.
If all of us would have real good confidence in ourselves and to put value not on money and not on all of these things that don't matter, external, or women getting BBLs and getting all this stuff.
What's a BBL?
You don't know Brazilian butt lift? Oh my gosh. You know you in California. You're supposed to know the Kardashians.
No, I live here.
We know.
I
you
in
live
Skokie.
here?
Yeah. No, I live in the Midwest.
Skokie. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
went to Los Angeles? I thought you were from.
No, I flew there
Oh
to
my
go
goodness.
to that seminar. No, I got
Oh,
on
I
a
was saying,
plane.
the BBLs, and you're supposed to look. It's when they butts ain't that big. They just they go out of the country and they get this stuff. They spend money on this external appearance.
Oh my Lord.
And an entire economy is driven by the fact that we feel bad about those things, that we don't feel good about ourselves.
It's a concerted effort to program people like this.
Yes.
That's what's so insidious and so destructive,
Very destructive. Absolutely.
And that's why I love what's happening here is I get moved whenever I see a proactive effort to let people know in any community that they are beautiful and great just the way they are.
Yes.
Just the way they are. And, in this country, I remember in my interview with Boyce when I said, and Black people have a very unique history because it started with kidnapping and terrorism, and they were brought here from another country, and he just kind of, he's like, and if you don't, so many people just sidestep that very basic fact, and so from that point forward, Black people were made to feel a certain way about themselves that has that plays itself out in such a horror. The straightening of the hair, the lack of thinking they're not beautiful in whatever way, or they're not smart, and that happens across the spectrum with humanity for sure. But it's very interesting to see it and hear it articulated in such a specific way. Be at a conference that's completely counter that.
Yeah, but
here,
now don't get me wrong. I did talk about this. I've been in a situation where I have struggled with money, where I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I have been in that situation, especially starting out as a new social worker. I just got to say. But I've also been in a situation where I did not have to worry about money. And I will say, and I've been in a situation where I'm married to Boyce, and we live below our means. I was talking about, I don't have a budget. We don't have a budget, but anything that we even want to do, it's just the knowledge of knowing that we could do probably anything we want to do.
It's amazing.
I will say, having money is fun.
Yeah.
It is a lot of fun. I'm like, woo,
you got to change your relationship
You
with
got to
it,
change your relationship. So I'm not putting money on a pedestal.
Right.
I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody because of how much money that I have, or because of the way I look, or any of those things, or you look this way, or dress this way, or act this way. I don't have any of that. And I take that because I'm talking about being a social worker. And I really do believe in social work values. Such as the dignity and worth of every person, the value of service, the value of the importance of human relationships.
Yes.
These are the things, and integrity. All of these things are things that I really do, just embrace. And of course, it gets into a place I think, listen, you can't look to everybody to get 100% accuracy.
What do you mean?
Even what I'm saying, I don't have not everybody has the full picture. So what I mean is that, I've heard Boyce make some comments about immigration. Okay. I absolutely disagree with that. There's no literature behind that. There is no evidence behind it. Like
what?
He has at times, and I know that's something that Claude Anderson has talked about. And I love Claude. I love Claude Anderson. We spent all day with him and his wife. His wife got her PhD at the same university I got my PhD at. So we know some of the same neighborhoods. It's really They were like a double of me and Boyce. It was
interesting.
Fascinating comparison. But like Boyce has talked about pretty openly about immigration. I'm like, we are not going to blame all of the problems of America on migrant workers.
Sure.
Like, we're not going to do that because that's not accurate. And I'm like, we need to like, that's going against my social work values.
Okay.
You know, so I'm like serious about that. I said, you don't know the trials and tribulations that people have gone through. The refugee status needs to be a real thing for America. You know, asylees who can't get refugee status, who are in danger and fleeing their country. Look at what's going on in Sudan. Like, I feel like, you know, passionate about, look what's going on in Sudan. I do think we need to have some spots available for people in Sudan.
I mean, did he listen? Has he listened to what you have to say, your perspective?
Not enough for me, but that's okay. We're going to dig down into it. But I have said, listen, boys, we have got to, you need to reevaluate a little bit of this. So not that he's 100%, but he's 100% correct in terms of everything that we've talked about. But some of the stuff, I'm like, we're not going through this conservative rhetoric. I'm not doing this. So I do challenge him, and I can't take it. You know, but I do it just to make people know that we are 85% agree on everything, but there's a little 15% that we do not agree on, and it's okay. Yeah. But I just want people to know I don't agree with it.
But you know, I think that's. I mean, that seems.
Hopefully, I'm not coming across as disrespectful.
No,
of him.
No.
But I'm just like, boys, we got to look at this a little differently.
And that's a beautiful thing in a relationship where you can do that. I mean, I bounce stuff off my wife all the time. And, I'm very passionate about certain things. But the thing about your husband that I really appreciate is that he is willing to listen. And that's not, I mean, you would know more than me, but
he needs to. This immigration thing, he's got to come around a little more. But he does actually, I am overwhelmed, by the way, of how well he is able to accept my influence. I accept his influence.
I think he's probably grown tremendously since you've been married. And
both of us have.
That's a great thing. That's a blessing. That's what I was saying. I mean, you are amazing for a man that is that capable as he is, but you help keep him grounded in a very positive way. And he's learned a lot from you as a therapist. I mean, my God.
I feel moved to share this story with you.
If you want to.
I don't even know the name. What's the name of this podcast?
It's called Rhythm of Life.
Rhythm of Life.
Yeah.
Oh, this is perfect.
Okay.
I do plant medicine ceremonies.
Oh, okay.
Of which, in California.
Okay.
Of which Boyce won't do any of it with me because he's like, give me that. They won't give the address out. It's like coordinates because it's a Schedule II drug or whatever. You can't really. And anyway, so.
What type of plant? I mean, can you tell what kind of plant it is?
It's ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca. Okay. Yeah. Some students of mine did a documentary. I used to teach a documentary class, and they did this specifically on ayahuasca. Blew me away.
Oh, it's amazing. And I scheduled another one. So.
Yeah. For you?
Oh, yeah. For myself, I have to.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I go.
I'm very intrigued. Please.
Very intrigued. But you get a lot of information when you take the medicine.
Sure.
It's crazy. So Boyce's ancestors and my ancestors are together. That's what I got. And they were
your journey with ayahuasca?
Through my journey with ayahuasca.
Wow.
We were in this big stadium. And his ancestors and my ancestors were locking arms, and they were like rocking back and forth, and they were telling us to go.
Like
go.
You
can
together?
Do it. Yes.
Oh, encouraging.
Together.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And they were like, you two are strong together. Like, that has been the theme that I've gotten from the other side. And I have been, and they said, it's a lot of messages that I get. They told me his grandmother, all of his my dad's passed. My dad, my grandmother, all of our ancestors were together, and I have such visual descriptions that I've asked people in Boyce's family, like, does this sound like this person? They're like, it absolutely sounds like that person. So I don't know.
Wow.
They told me, we are shoveling love to you to give to Boyce. We are shoveling. And I said, I have so much love for Boyce. I don't know. It's like he can't do anything that really pisses me off as much to where I'd be like, this is over, you know? They said, we're shoveling love to you to give to Boyce because we know Boyce needs to heal. And I said, well, he won't come to the ceremony. And they said, he doesn't have to come to the ceremony. He's getting his medicine through you. And they
totally see that.
They
that
said,
doesn't surprise me at all.
Correct. It's a lot of other stuff. I didn't know this interview probably wasn't going in this direction.
Me neither.
But like, it is really you said the rhythm of life, but everything, when I go take the medicine, it's all rhythm. It's really like a movement back and forth. And they said, we're fixing it. And they have actually given me, they said, get your piece of paper out and write these steps down. And his biological father is for him, because he doesn't have a relationship with his body. He talks about that a lot.
Oh yeah, he's very honest.
And his biological father came to me and was like, I want to do more for Boyce.
Wait, in real life or during your journey?
No, during the journey, because he's passed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He told me, he said, I want to do more for Boyce.
Wow.
But because Boyce didn't have a relationship with me, I can only do but so much.
Okay.
And I went to Boyce and I told him, and I said, this was because it was a 2-night ceremony, right?
Okay.
So after the first ceremony, I'm sharing this with him, and he was just like, he just threw out some goal that he wanted or whatever. Okay. And I went back in. Wasn't even thinking about it. He comes to me and he was just like, take a piece of paper and write this down. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. He wrote down steps. He said, write it down. You do this, do this. It was like something bizarre. And he said, follow these steps and Boyce will have whatever he wants. I will see to it.
Whoa, that's heavy.
It is the most. I said, what? And I said, Boyce, you owe me money for this. But I didn't know. Like, it is really something. I was talking to you about how we have a birthmark in the same spot.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up.
The same spot on our body.
And so what about the steps, though? Did he adhere to these steps? Did you write them down? Did this play out in the way he thought?
It is fascinating. Like, because Boyce doesn't want to let himself, like, admit that it's something to this. He doesn't want to let himself, that every once in a while he'll be doing something and I'll pull out my journal and I'll be like, step 1, such and such, step 2, such and such. And they have done, and I will say, the more he adheres to a lot of what they're saying, the better he grows. And they say, you two are strong together. And they were telling me, you need to be stronger in this way. Boyce needs to do this in this way. I've never in my life gotten so many instructions. I don't know. I ain't trying to question it. I'm just going to follow it and see where it takes us. Where are we going? Where's Boyce and I going? I don't know. But I know that I'm going to follow those instructions. Because I ain't pay all that money to go over there and take that medicine and get sick. I was sick for a whole week. It makes you sick.
Oh, really?
Oh, God.
Where did you do this?
In some undisclosed place in California.
It is. Oh, I'm sorry.
I can't say what it is.
Forgive me.
I can't say, but it's in California. There's a lot of places in California.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you had to go to Peru or somewhere in
You can go to Peru.
Yeah, that's really where it's from, right?
Yeah, well, it's from, it's in the rainforest, Amazon rainforest.
That's where it grows, right?
Yeah, and the music, it's the music that heals. It is the music.
So, wow, that's pretty incredible because, so I didn't know, I mean, I remember you mentioning the Reiki when I listened to your talk on over the internet, which you talked a little bit about. Yeah,
I had my Reiki. I'm like, girl, just go for it.
And she did her Reiki. That's really interesting because everything you were talking about in the talk that I'm telling you, I was not kidding. When I just started listening, I never listened to just you.
Oh.
It was always you with your husband. And this is the first time. And he sent me, send out the text and I tap on it and I'm in the gym and I got my whole thing. I got my routine. I go on the hot tub, then I go on the steam and then I do this and I'm showering. I got out and I'm listening to it like first couple minutes. And I was like, and I'm listening and I'm listening. I sat right with my feet dangling in the hot tub for over an hour.
This was the pain to peace?
No, this was your YouTube presentation about your wellness program.
Oh,
which I didn't even realize what it was. I was just listening to your insights about healing, and it was all about the goal was getting to a relaxed body and not be triggered by your trauma. And everybody has trauma.
Yeah,
everybody does, and I can feel my triggers now. With the anxiety of a lot of things, elections. My kid is a senior in high school. They play competitive sports, which is, it's like, oh, why is this like, why am I tripping out about this so much? But if it matters to you, it matters. Or, you have I have a dear friend who's going through a major health issue. And it really, really angers me.
Yes.
About like what has happened to him from the healthcare industry. So, that stuff plays itself out in ways you don't really realize. So, getting to that relaxed body is so important because a lot of people don't realize they're trying to do, but really, and that's why I meditate on a regular basis, because it's so important to quiet your mind, and because you need a structure to stay grounded. You do, or else, because if you rely on just, oh, I can do it, I don't need that, that's a bunch of nonsense, because all these outside influences are constantly working on you. They're shouting at you through social media, through broadcast media, through other outlets, newspapers or whatever, through this misconstrued understanding of things around you by people. It's so crazy. You can hear what's on the news.
Yes.
And have people regurgitate almost word for word what people are saying. Like, for instance, I had a relative, when I mentioned stem cell therapy, she's like, oh, I don't want to touch that. Oh, that deals with the babies. And I'm like, do you know anything about it? Nothing.
Yeah.
And it's just pretty typical. And with ayahuasca, I bet people are just like, oh my God, I wouldn't want to try that.
It's okay. It's not for, now that is not for everybody, but they do believe that everybody should just do it at least once.
Well, isn't it and I want to talk about Reiki because that was fascinating. But ayahuasca, my understanding is that you go through the abyss. You go through something difficult in your mind as part of the journey.
It's a death experience.
Oh, it is? Okay. Way to bottom
just tell you that.
Okay.
It's a death experience.
And so, and then when you come out of that, you feel like reborn.
You're reborn for sure.
And you're clear about what's important. And so I think that my father went through that in World War II. I mean, he was in D-Day.
Wow.
D-Day. He was part of that initial charge, storming the beaches of Normandy. So he saw a lot of death up close. And then coupled with the fact having a wife and child killed. So his the things that you hold most dear were ripped away from you. And so when I found that out, I realized I learned about him so much that was so helpful to me to understand why he wasn't so intimate. I mean, I knew he loved me, but he didn't show it a lot. He very rarely hugged me, never told me he loved me. He's probably scared to death that I'd be leaving too.
Yes.
And I never knew that. And so I think that's why he was on such a mission after that. And he was going to speak his truth. He didn't he didn't care. And people think he was,
when you look death in the face like that.
That's what I'm saying.
It's just like.
You have a different relationship to like, oh, this political battle is rough. Okay, well, are there bullets involved?
That's right.
Is someone's arm being blown up right next to me? No, so that's, are my wife and child being killed?
We couldn't even imagine all of that, but it is a protective factor for him not to get too close.
It's obvious to me. And I mean, there's a real beautiful thing that happens when, as an adult, you accept your parents as people.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And
I've had to do that with my dad.
Well, we all have, as part of the maturation process and becoming a full adult, through the normal process in a healthy way. You have to accept them. And sometimes, when I would talk to my sisters about that, they had, I think a harder time with that, which is fine.
Everybody has their own
exactly
thing.
and I try to be very accepting, but I got to spend time with him before he passed, and I value that time. Man, I got complete with him. And just as a side note, have you ever heard of Landmark? Have you ever heard of Landmark Education?
No, what is that?
Oh my gosh, we got to talk about that at some
Landmark,
point.
yeah.
Well, it's how my wife and I met. And it's a whole series of seminars in putting your past where it belongs in the past, and creating your future based on nothing, not what you think is possible,
releasing
not on
yourself of all of that,
not your circumstances, but creating possibility from possibility itself, and not based on what you think is possible, not just like, what do you want? Like, what do you actually want? What's most important to you? And being able to complete your past and put it where it belongs in the past, because, you know, all of our past trauma is actually not in our past. It's actually in our future. We just don't realize it. And we're constantly moving into this future that looks like our past because we keep regurgitating it because we haven't completed it.
That's the whole point of therapy. That's so
what
interesting.
I'm saying.
Like, I really wish I could impart a lot of that into my clients. Like, they have to sort through things and have a place to process all of this. But the goal for them is to green light. Go on and do it. Like, what is the worst that can happen?
Well, that's the thing, and a lot of what's being encouraged here at the All Black National Convention is very similar in the dynamic of Landmark in terms of creating possibility from possibility itself. But it takes a minute for you to get the noise out of your head to figure out like what you actually want. And you know, like I remember talking to my mother about this when I was going through Landmark. And I said, well, what do you want? She said, well, if this happens. I said, no, not if. She said, well, if this happens, and then if that happens, then I could do this. And I said, what do you want? It was like 10 minutes back and forth. She couldn't just tell me because she was so deeply.
She wouldn't even let herself verbalize it. She knows what it is. She wouldn't even let herself verbalize it.
And it was intense. Wow. And it was so obvious to me. Like, wow, this is, and you know, it's the World War II generation coming from scarcity. And I totally respect that. Yeah. I totally get it. But unfortunately, that's a huge stumbling block for people to getting what they want. And then, so here, that trauma is.
And there's the money scripts. There really is the money script. Like, totally. I can hear my grandma talk about Commonwealth Edison is rich. I am not rich. But this lady was rich. This lady was sitting on all sorts of money. She wasn't spending any of it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, well, my mom was a very, very successful entrepreneur. She had her own book of business in the insurance business, commercial lines, personal lines. She dealt with discrimination against because she was a woman. She's a very strong woman. Very, very, very powerful. But she thought that she could just pay her taxes, you know, a year late every day. And I'm like, no, get this together. You're paying penalties. And she's like, but that's my money. I'm like, okay. You know, so that was so hard for her to rearrange. And so I grew up not being very responsible because that's what I was told. But when I met my wife.
Your wife got you in line.
It was like, boom. And I grew. And I got
need one of those. You need one of those.
I turned everything around. And now, and I talk honestly with my kids about this. I said, look, this is what I learned from your mother. And now I'm going to take it. Now I'm going to take it to another degree because we've imparted this very grounded behavior with money with them. And what's really important, at least I'm trying my best. And coupled with now you need a capital base. You need freedom.
Yes.
You need
freedom is important.
Multiple streams of income. You need to be invested. And that's what we're all about. So, you know, it's combining these two sets of awarenesses and perspectives from because my wife is old school. You know, you do well in school. She's like extremely, she was very, very studious. I was like, God,
that's the German part of her.
Yeah. But, you know, and Catholic and regimented and all that. And I was just quite the opposite, but it's not like I didn't appreciate being intellectually stimulated, always, very, but I just never gave a damn. And it just was following whatever interested me. And it's not like I was like falling off the deep end into drugs in high school or anything like that. It was just, I just never was regimented in that way. But when we met on things that were really dear and important to us. And then I learned from her and like, this is how she thinks about money. And I got myself together And it made a huge difference. And now we can impart, because a lot of the lessons you learn through life is by making mistakes.
Yeah, and know that you're going to make the mistake.
Totally.
I really encourage, I've been talking to people, I'm like, just do it. Just dive in. It's going to be clunky. And once I made that decision, I made it with my brother a few years ago. He said, it's always to do than not to do. That was used to be his motto. And I just decided to take that on when it comes to Boyce. So Boyce puts me in new situations all the time. Situations I've never been in before. Like that Friday talk, there was someone else who was supposed to talk at 10:45.
Oh, really?
I just did the talk because he needed someone to fill in.
Oh.
He had given that spot to someone else.
Oh.
Or not given it to someone else was scheduled to talk. And it was like maybe 2 weeks ago, he said, Alicia, so-and-so backed out, couldn't make it to the convention.
Oh my God.
And then he came in and he was just like, would you mind talking? And I was like, sure, fine, I'll do it. I didn't even know what the topic was. And I said, what's the topic? He said, well, just make it whatever you want. I said, no. I said, what do you want me to talk about? And he came up with the topic and I said, okay, I'm going to pull something together. Knowing I had no time to do it, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it because that's what I decided I was going to do it for my husband.
And that was where you talked about the money scripts?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's why I talk about money. I just pulled it together. I didn't want to give the audience things they've already heard. So I wanted to talk about something different that kind of fills it in a little bit. So he's like, and he's hard on me. I said, how did I do? He was like, you were good. You had to, he's giving me all these critiques. And I'm like, this fool don't know. I'm like, I was up, like really studying. I already knew what I wanted to say, but it takes time to pull things together and get, he's like, make sure you have good examples.
Well, you give him honest feedback, I would imagine, don't you? That's a two-way street.
Let me tell you, I do, but not about
my wife doesn't mess around.
In terms of orators and giving speeches and stuff, nothing tops Boyce on that. I can't. He's been doing it for so
he's
so
very
long.
good. But I mean, if you saw something that needed to be pointed out, wouldn't you be honest with him?
Oh, for sure. I can't not point it out.
Of course.
I've already got my list of mental things. What are my kids are looking for me? I already got mental things that I'm already going to talk to them about this convention. Like we process stuff with the convention.
Yeah.
I mean, there's way more hits than misses, but there's a few misses here and there.
Yeah, I mean,
no one cares and no one recognizes it. It's all internal stuff.
But no, I understand. And it's also, I know you probably have to deal with
I feel like
kids,
my kids are looking for me.
I really want to ask you about the different types of modalities, particularly the Reiki.
The Reiki.
Because when I heard about that, I was like, wow, that's healing through the hand. And then this woman that was on stage with you, what's her name?
Lachelle. Oh, yes.
Lachelle what?
Lachelle Whitmore. I think that's her last name.
And she can tell what has happened to you.
Yes.
By just like being around or hearing your name and being with you, even if it's over the internet.
Yes, she can do that.
When people get a little nervous, like she's going to like know stuff about you that you don't want people to know.
No, she's great. Boyce got a reading from her.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I surprised I didn't mention it, but Boyce got a reading from her.
He's open to some things.
He is some things he's open. By the way, I mean, I do the ayahuasca ceremonies with his sister. Me and his sister, we do them together.
Wow. Well, so what does Reiki do for you? Is that a form of Reiki? That what the metaphysical, or is that a different type of healing?
Well, the plant medicine ceremony is different, but
no, that's ayahuasca. But the Reiki is what this woman who's on stage
she does the
you.
Reiki.
And that's with the hands like over the body, and she doesn't touch.
It can be done that way, but she does it more intuitive. Like she does medical intuitive work too. She's gifted, very, very gifted. Yeah, and she is able. What's great is that she usually meets with people who come to the Healing Haven. She meets with them first before I meet with them, and she really does give them, okay, here's what you need to focus your attention on. Right. Here are some things that you need to consider. And when I meet with them every month, I do the ongoing kind of work with them. Right. And, they'll be connecting with me and they'll say, well, when I had my reading, here's what she mentioned that I need to really focus on. And the thing, you pay for these sessions for Reiki and she's giving you direction and then you just take the direction and that's it, And so I'm like, no, we've got to integrate it. We've got to be accountable to each other. We've got to really make the changes so that we can feel good, because it can be overwhelming.
Oh, for sure.
So we put things in place. I can give them technical things to do, to be able to connect and to pursue and to carry out some of the things that she has identified in them.
And one of the fundamental things that you talked about, I think it was on a podcast, somebody mentioned the mind-body connection. You're like, no, there's no connection. The mind and body are one.
They're one.
And I was like, when you said that, I've always thought about how integral they are to one another. But when you said that, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, exactly. Because, and then you talked about, that back problem you might have, that's trauma.
Yes.
That's your body holding trauma. Oh, your ankle doesn't feel. And I was like, that hit me
from the waist down
really, really hard. Can you talk a little bit about how important that is to recognize and how that plays itself out?
It really is, because listen, children need a safe space of which to talk about what's happening with them. Their feelings, believe it or not, their feelings about what's happening to them. They don't have it. So they're holding all of this in. And where you hold it in your body, which is why Reiki is so important, is in your nervous system and your spine, and you're clenching together. I mean, you can see people who walk around on their tiptoes. I worked with the guy, and he said that he was so afraid being around his father that he would walk around on his tiptoes.
Oh, wow.
And he had all sorts of, I think he may have been addicted to pain medicine and some other stuff. But I knew that his addiction to the pain medicine was mitigating some things for him. So I couldn't take that away from him because he needed something to replace it. So what could he do? That was his coping mechanism. So you hold that in your body, and that is trauma. That really is the definition of trauma. It's it being held. That energy is stored in there. And when you start uncover, it's like an onion. When you start peeling all of these things away, and they start sharing stories, and I'm like, really, your mother did that to you? What were the feelings you had toward your mother for that? What messages did you learn? And really start connecting with that, and really having the inner child is damaged. It gets into the real psychodynamic things. But as you explore all that and help them connect the dots with their current functioning, their current physical health, and being able to connect with how they felt back then and what happened to them, they start to release some of that tension, gets out of the body. And that's why connecting with the Reiki, I really love that she is able to move some of that stuff around, because it really does speed up a lot of the work that I'm doing. And I was real happy that Lachelle came here, and I just let her go. I said, Lachelle, tell your story. And I just you take the stage and really share some of the things, because they hear from me all the time.
So have practitioners that do what you do and do what she does, do they generally team up like the way you two have?
Well, we definitely recommend it. I mean,
that really sounds like a great idea. But
there are a ton of therapists right now who are saying, listen, ayahuasca ceremonies are doing remarkable things, particularly with people with PTSD. There's a lot of studies right now. California is going to pass a bill, because that's where I go to do they have a bill that they're getting sponsored to make plant medicine ceremonies actually legal. But you can have the drug
mushrooms as well.
Well, I don't know to what extent, but I know ayahuasca for sure, because there's so much research about it. But the thing is that we do it with a shaman, and it's with a tribe of people. And so technically, since it's tribal, technically it's it's okay to do, because you can do it in the guise of that. But the thing is that, I mean, there's bills. It's, California, of course, right? They're going to be passing this. And so the progressiveness of California hopefully will be something that we all, and we all can use. Now, therapists, we know this. People with PTSD can heal so much faster with the plant medicine. And they can get in touch with what was lost in them during war. They don't even have to be combat veterans. Just being in the military is traumatic for a lot of people. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, for sure.
I've talked to people. I used to get transitioning from military life to civilian life. They all need therapists doing that.
I'm sure. And what was your thoughts about, I've heard this mentioned in other seminars at the convention about generational trauma. I mean, passed through DNA and things of that. Like, what is it? I don't know if that's epigenetic.
The epigenetics.
Yeah. What do you
Actually,
think
the
about that?
research, a lot of the research was done with Holocaust victims. That's where the research began. And then,
Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
that's where the research began.
What was interesting is because a very dear friend of mine and someone I worked with, I taught for a bit at Northwestern's journalism school.
Oh, okay.
And he spearheaded an initiative to document the children of Holocaust survivors and how this generational trauma, but I didn't know it was physical.
Yes.
Are physical and through the genes to some degree. And could you explain that a little bit, how this plays itself out?
Yeah, well, it all came from the famous Emory study at University of Emory.
Oh.
Emory University.
Okay.
Where they have the lab mice. They would give them it was cherry blossom scent. Yeah, the cherry blossom. Okay. And then they would pair it with electric shocks.
Right.
And of course they didn't even need to get the shock. All they had to do was smell the cherry blossom and they would react. Their bodies would react as if they were being shocked. Oh, and so that's the case for their second generation. The mice would mate in the second generation would not get shocked. They would just smell the cherry blossom.
And they reacted
fashion. As if they were shocked.
Are you kidding me?
I'm the kid you not. And then again, the next generation
Whoa.
of rats would react. They had not been shocked. Their grandparents, great-great-grandparents were shocked. But the cherry blossom scent changed in a way their DNA, structure of their DNA. But what they decided to do was, okay, let's pair cherry blossom with calmness.
Right.
Cherry blossom with healing. Whatever was like the best thing I call it in the mice world, the wonderful thing in mice world, they were able to pair the cherry blossom with something positive, and sure enough, their descendants no longer had that reaction to cherry blossom.
Wow.
So it tells you that, it's been changed in a way that doesn't serve you anymore, but you can also heal from it. And that's the breaking these generational curses. Yeah. And this is the psychological thing. So this convention, this is the Cherry Blossom Convention. We're pairing and we're bringing to our consciousness some of the things that did not work for us anymore, playing those scripts out, making a conscious effort to say, I'm going to be vigilant, not hyper vigilant, but I'm going to play out the script of vigilance because I know this is the best script where I can enjoy myself, but at the same time, make really good decisions about my finances.
And the only way to do that is to first identify what the heck is going on.
You got to recognize it.
You got to recognize that this is the dynamic that's playing itself out on people.
Serving you.
And it's extremely powerful and you don't know it. And so in landmark talk, getting back to landmark education, there's the knowledge that all the knowledge in the world, there's the knowledge that you know, and you know that you know it. And there's the knowledge that you don't know, but you know that you don't know it. And there's the knowledge that you don't know that you don't know.
You don't know that you don't know.
It's in your blind spot.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. So this convention brings that up, then gets people to identify these perspectives and these relationships to whatever the trauma is, and then transform it. And create something and put something in its place that'll have people heal and move forward in a positive direction. It's powerful stuff.
I will tell you, my dad, he passed away, but my dad and I connected very closely with Boyce, believe it or not. Boyce and my dad have never actually met, and it's crazy because when Boyce started, he was on CNN all the time. And
oh, really?
He was fighting with, he didn't tell you about that whole story. He was fighting with Riley, what's his name? From Fox
Bill
News.
O'Reilly.
Bill O'Reilly. He had the big fallout.
No, he was on Fox.
He was on Fox, but he was also on CNN.
Wait, Bill O'Reilly was on CNN?
No. Oh, yeah. Bill O'Reilly was on Fox.
Right.
So Boyce would spend time on Fox fighting with Bill O'Reilly, which was really a waste of time. But I think that's great.
God, he's so full of crap.
And Bill O'Reilly went down and Boyce was like, So he was also on CNN for a long time. And my dad and I would call each other all the time around Boyce. And he used to say, he said, you know what? say what you want about Boyce, you know, he loved everything Boyce was doing, by the way. And he would say, you know what, Boyce is the only one out here who's giving solutions. Like, he's like, yeah, you can break down the problem. You can talk about the issues in the Black community. You can do all this. But Boyce is actually giving you solutions, things that you can take with you. And he really thought early on that Boyce was really on to something, because it wasn't just hot air. It was, he's giving you steps and solutions to navigate all of this.
Totally. He's walking the walk.
Yeah. So it was really something, because right when Boyce and I started dating, before we went to Guyana, my dad passed away, and it was really...
Oh, wait, when did you go?
We went to Guyana 2017.
Oh, okay.
And that's when we first started dating.
Oh, gotcha.
And before I went, we had everything planned, and then my dad, he passed away. And he ended up going to his funeral. He went down there with me to the funeral. And I was just sitting there. It was really an awful experience for me. It was not the last 5 years of my dad's life, it was rocky between us. And I don't really talk about it that much, but it's just like, oh my God, just devastating. And me and my dad have been super close. I think I was probably his favorite person. I was my dad's favorite person. Or seriously. And then he got sick, and he just didn't want anyone around him. He was real grouchy and stuff. It was hard. It was really hard. And so Boyce, that was the first time Boyce met him, was at his funeral, and Boyce was like a pallbearer because they needed another person. And he was like, oh, I'll do it. And he just like stepped up and did it, which I thought was really interesting. But that was our connection, believe it or not. And of course, the ayahuasca. I could go. I don't want to go back into ayahuasca, but they told me all sorts of stuff. My dad comes to me all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really heavy.
It is very heavy. Yeah, it is really heavy. It's heavy. I mean,
but what's interesting about you is you're traditionally trained. What is your official title? Your official title in how you talk about yourself as a clinically trained therapist that specializes in trauma?
Yes.
Okay.
But I call myself a social worker first. I am a social worker. Like that really is who and what I am. I adhere to all of those values that I talked about. The perspective. I'm a social work educator. So I train other people how to become therapists. I work only in my MSW program at my home institution, University of St. Francis.
Oh, wait. So a social worker is by trade a therapist as well?
Yeah, so you can become a therapist in a bunch of different ways. And one way is to be a social worker. And you have to, of course, graduate from a licensed program or accredited program and get your license and do the CEU. So I keep my license current.
But you also embrace other modalities, which is wonderful.
Yeah, and it's great to be in social work education. My children go to school for free, so that's beautiful. They get my son; he's in college free now.
Wow,
just free. He doesn't pay any tuition, and I think that makes up for the lousy salary. But at least I'm a college professor and have access to all of this information. And I use these resources in my practice, and I'm just living. I really am living the life that I've always wanted to live from the moment. It's interesting. The moment I met Boyce, that was kind of when I was 19 years old. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be a college professor. I knew I wanted to be a therapist. And it's so interesting that Boyce has actually been so instrumental in helping me graduate from college. I could not pass that dang on college algebra. I couldn't calculus. I could not pass calculus. He tutored me through that.
Oh, really?
That's how I felt like I'm always indebted to him. So he's helped me graduate from college. And he's helped me create my business, my private practice that I never in a million years thought it was possible, but always wanted to do. All praises due to Boyce Watkins, my Lord and Savior. There, I've said it publicly. I don't know how debaucherous, and I don't know what other negative words I can say to myself, but he really is a gift to everybody. He really is a gift to everybody around him, to the point where I'm just like, okay, Boyce, enough already. But I know that that's him and that's what he has to do. He's very selfless. He makes no money in any of his live events. Like this convention every year, He does not make any money off of it.
Wow.
And he's doing it because he doesn't even care if he makes a penny. He doesn't care.
He's
He's out there. You know what he's doing right now? We don't know what he's doing, but I guarantee you he's giving away books and stuff.
That's
He's
what's
selfless.
that's exactly. That's
almost to a fault. It's hard to be married to a man who's selfless because you're like, what are you doing?
He's taking care of business. I mean, what's so refreshing about him is he's very clear about who he is.
Yeah.
Very clear. And most people are really not.
Yeah.
Most people are not. And that's what I'm instantly drawn to, people who are clear about that. I've noticed this pattern in myself.
Yes.
And it's very clear. And I just, I don't really care about people who are all about the facade. I couldn't care less about that.
That is so, because
I couldn't care less about it.
when we met,
he
was not Dr. Boyce.
Oh.
When we met, he did not have a PhD.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to tell you right now, not much is different. He was outspoken then. Every place he's ever been, people either loved him or hated him.
Uh-huh.
He was not apologetic, but he was kind of like, this is what I think, but I'm sorry, I can't help it. He's always been that way. And when I talk to his mama tells me stories about when he was an infant and a child. It is Boyce. It is his template. He has a template, and it's amazing. It's remarkable. Just some of the things that he's been through.
Yeah.
I admire. There's nobody else on the face of this earth I admire more than my husband, for real.
That's beautiful.
That's
a really beautiful thing. And one of the things that it reminded me of that he's uniquely great at, because he's so grounded, and with you by his side, for sure, I'm sure that just helps him out in a lot of ways, is that he's very comfortable with the uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
And that's something that people learn through this program that I told you about through Landmark.
Yes.
And it's very, very interesting, because that is the key to growth.
Yes.
Because the key to growth is being in the uncomfortableness of whatever's going on when you are shifting perspectives, which is essential for growing in a variety of ways. And when you get trained and developed in being comfortable with the uncomfortableness, that's powerful. And that leads to possibilities that were not available to you before you were able to embrace that. And when you're around other people who are doing that.
Oh, it's refreshing.
Exactly. So, I'll say things to people that I know, and I'll let something plunk down, and I'm just kind of like there with them, and, and letting it marinate. And it's really interesting because of these interpersonal communications, particularly through this podcast paradigm.
Yeah.
In person, it's the other person has to deal with it, because you're right here. They can't discount you because you're right in front of their face.
Yes.
And it also reminds me, talk about acceptance. I know this is a little digression, but when you talked about, wow, your wife and you got married and you're very different on the surface. However, if you give people enough time in their interpersonal space, it's amazing what can happen. And there was this documentarian, this Muslim woman, who made a documentary about white supremacists. And she was an activist and a filmmaker, and she used to protest against all these white supremacists for years. And it never really...
she got to know them, didn't she?
Well, she that wasn't really doing anything. And yeah, that's exactly what happened. She got to know them, and they got to know her.
And it all wiped away, didn't it? It melted away.
Every single person she interviewed went through a major transformation.
Oh.
And for the better. And they now a lot of them are advocates.
That's an intervention.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what's amazing is that if people will say, oh, I can't change it. Baloney.
It's contact theory. Have you heard contact theory?
No.
Well, that's what that is.
Contact theory?
Contact theory. You
in
can
terms
really
of being
change
the space?
Yeah, just by being in the space and being in contact with another person who you were opposing. Think about, we want to
all right, well, now
demonize
a
whole group of people. We want to
really...
make sure, we're in this country that has all this division now.
We're all ginned up to do that.
Up to do that,
You
yes.
said that, I'm not
Your
listening.
whole part, it is.
Nothing, I'm nothing to do with you.
Exactly.
And F that guy or that woman or whatever.
Yeah, all this stuff. It's,
Yeah, and I did that with my a relative of mine before he passed, and when Trump was running for office the first time, and I was like, "You're for that dude."
And
it's your husband that had me really look at that.
Well,
Not that I think.
Listen,
you know what I'm saying?
I'm just gonna say.
Go ahead.
This election is different.
Oh, for sure.
There is it. I really do believe. Now, I listen to Richard Hoagland. Have you ever heard of Richard Hoagland? Anyway, I listen to him, and he has this theory. He's like, Trump is really trying to be awful. He doesn't even believe that Trump believes all the things that he's saying.
He's just brazenly horrible.
That Trump is like doing all he can to just be terrible. And like, there's no reason why he needs to be this way.
It's like, almost like a test on society. Like
yes.
Somebody has said, hey, just be an ass, a complete abomination.
Don't even try to win this election.
Yeah, and the more he does that, the more
people
are like,
popular.
yeah, it's crazy. It's like
the desire. It's almost just the desire behind it.
It's a weird psychological test on society. It's like it says more about the state of affairs in this country than it does about him.
Yes.
That's kind of how I view it.
Oh, the collective consciousness, of course, of this entire of everybody.
It's amazing to me.
It is really amazing. Carl Jung would have had a wonderful thing with this one. Let's not even get into Carl.
And then this this ridiculous comparison. It's like there are issues with the Democratic Party. Yeah. There are issues with Kamala Harris for sure.
Yeah, there are
issues
with her.
As a prosecutor in San Francisco, I was like,
unbelievable.
Whoa. But there are also a lot of redeeming qualities to her as a human being. And she is a very bright, strong, capable woman. Then you've got this dude who is none of that.
None of it.
Has been given everything. He's not worked for anything. He's a horrible businessman.
Horrible.
He's like ridiculously bad. All of the generals that he's ever worked with think he's horrible and a threat to the nation.
Yes.
And it goes on and on and on. Because if he was a black man...
Oh, there was no way. He'd be in prison.
It's like the perfect example of white male privilege in this country. He's a walking embodiment, living embodiment of this. I mean, it's like, and that's really just the bottom line.
Truer words have never been spoken at this point.
It's like amazing. And, I mean, it was really interesting because Lawrence Watkins, your husband's brother. Oh,
interesting where Lauren, I know where Lawrence stands.
Talked about, that'd be interesting. But we can talk about that off podcast. Okay. But what's interesting is he's got dual citizenship.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. And I thought about that like, whoa. And, that's a real thing. And this whole thing about, yes, I do understand that we're part of a two-party system that's really heavily controlled by corporate power, for sure. And that's getting worse and worse. No doubt about it. And real reform is shut out. No doubt about it. However, I mean, we got a lunatic.
Let me tell you, we got a sample ballot in the mail.
Okay.
I said, hey, boys, it's a sample ballot. Now, I have some good friends of mine and people who are in my run club and people who are in my boot camp who are running for political offices, local offices, right? Clerk or whatever. Okay. So I'm filling out the bubbles for him. And I said, this is a sample ballot and I'm filling out the bubbles. I'm giving this to you because these are the people you need to vote for when we go to vote.
Right.
And I said, and this is right after he did this podcast. Ain't nobody gonna tell me who to vote for. Right. And I said, let me tell you, no one can tell you who to vote for except me. I'm gonna tell you who to vote for. And he was just like, okay, give me the piece of paper. But he did say he is voting.
Oh, okay.
He's gonna vote for the local elections as I told him to vote for it because we need to have my friends running.
Yeah. And it was really interesting listening to the political conference with Dr. Cornel West's running mate.
Oh, yeah.
Who had some very, very insightful things to say, for sure. And, that panel was really intense. Really, really intense.
I knew it would be.
It was a family affair and it was honest. And people were like, "Whoa!" I mean, I didn't even see it on the schedule at first. I just ran, and then I was like, "Oh man!" I saw it the day of, and I thought, "Oh, let me go in there. I really want to check this out." And it was way beyond what I thought.
Yeah,
it would
Boyce
be.
loved that one. He first of all, he loves that kind of stuff. He loves that kind of stuff. were talking
People
about
are being real and honest.
You
and
know
that
what?
was refreshing.
That's the thing. We were getting there earlier about Boyce. I do remember Boyce coming to visit me. And whenever he would come to visit me, this lightness would happen with me.
Oh, that's great.
I remember like, throw caution to the wind. Let's just go do whatever we want. There was something liberating about the 24 to 48 hours that I would spend with him. And we would spend mind you, I had a boyfriend.
Interesting.
So I would be like, hey, boyfriend, I'm hanging out with my friend. Don't call me. I'm busy. And he'd be like, okay. Because there was nothing romantic happening with us. I'm like, my friend's in town. I'm canceling everything. And Boyce and I would literally hang out with each other for 2 days. He wasn't in town or available more than that.
Right.
But we would be like little schoolgirls, laughing and giggling and doing whatever we felt like we wanted to do in the morning. You want to go to the movies? Yeah, let's go to the movies. You want to do this? Yeah, let's go. Do you want a salsa dance? Let's do this. Let's go eat at Bennigan's or let's go. And we would just like, it was almost like I was free for that 48 hours. And then I'd be like, bye, see you later. And then he would go off and wherever he was doing. And then I had to like go back to the mundane stuff. And that's really my experience. Now, my entire life is fun and freedom. Like I feel like I have married my best friend that I'm attracted to romantically, and we can go and do whatever we feel like we want to do and just have fun. Like that is the thing. That's the thing.
It's
Isn't that
amazing
something?
that it is. It's also amazing that it took you that long.
I honestly never thought about it. When we first met, believe it or not, my friends all saw it.
Oh, well.
And my friend Melanie was like, Alicia, when you told me you were getting married, I thought you were marrying Boyce. And I was like, but I had this boyfriend that I was been dating for years. They were like, we didn't know what was going on. We always thought, all of my friends thought there was something going on with me and Boyce. They never said it to me. I said, you gotta be kidding me. They were like, we are not surprised at all. We all thought y'all wasn't.
So you're human just like the rest of us. You don't see the obvious.
I never saw it.
Yeah.
I never saw it because I was single. I didn't have nobody. I was like, who you dating? And he's like, who you dating? I'm like, nobody. But tell me about your relationship. And he never said anything to me. So that's on him.
Wow.
I don't know. But God, we probably hate each other if we dated back then. Who knows? All in due time. Ayahuasca told me it happens as it's supposed to.
Oh, is that what it tells you? Really?
Okay, so now I was going to say it earlier. I had a ayahuasca. Do you know what they told me one time? They said, you need to know what's going on. We orchestrated the whole thing. I said, what are you talking about? They said, we orchestrated the whole thing.
What do you mean?
And they said, we orchestrated the whole thing for you and Boyce to be together.
Who did?
Our ancestors.
Oh, they said that's
yes, when I was taking the plant medicine.
Oh, my Lord.
And I was like, what? I was surprised. They said, no, I got divorced. I got married, had 3 children.
Wow.
Got divorced. And they said, that's why you got divorced, because of us. That's what they said.
Wow. That's deep.
It was deep. I wasn't ready for all of that.
Yeah, but it happened.
They said it was our fault. We did it.
Yeah, well, you weren't ready for it, but it happened, and now you're married and you're happy.
Oh, I never in a million years ever thought I could be this wonderfully happy. Even, I will tell you, It's been some tense moments between Boyce and I. Really, we had to go through. He's never been married, so it's like I got to break him in. You got to break in a man. Men don't come ready to be husbands.
No.
You got to break them in a little bit. There've been some tense moments, even on our worst day.
Totally.
I'm still having so much fun with Boyce. It is just like the weekends when he'd come and we would just spend all this time together. I still feel excited and happy just to be around him. Seriously.
That's incredible.
And I have to stop myself because I'm like, Boyce, you are insatiable. Let me just stop. I really have to tell myself, Alicia, the man got things to do.
That's amazing. I mean, so we've covered a lot of ground.
We've covered everything. What time is okay? People are looking for me.
So any final thoughts about the convention and what you do and all the amazing things that are happening here? If you wanted to, any parting shots? Thank you for being here. This is awesome.
It is a spiritual experience for me. It really is.
I'm sure.
It is. I can't wrap my brain around being married to a man that I absolutely love.
Okay.
I can't wrap my brain. I'm still digesting the fact that I have married. Boyce and I are married. Like, sometimes we look at each other and we're like, we are married to each other? What the heck?
And look,
like,
I mean, this convention
has
been built by his vision with his brother, and now you're an integral
and now
part of this.
And then Lawrence is like, Alicia, go ahead, because he didn't do a ball. He didn't do all this stuff. I'm like, Black people like to get dressed up. What you doing? He's like, no, I don't want to do a ball.
Okay.
We did this ball. Like, it has just blossomed into something that is honestly bigger than the both of us. And whenever I see
awesome.
the people come together and the connections and all of this, it is bigger than the both of us. We have had people come to this convention, speed dating and all of that. When I used to have it, they met each other, they're married, they have children. All of these things that all I'm doing is just, really, I do meditate. And I have a process where I'm like, no matter how many mistakes I may make, how many bumps along the way, I have to really center myself and just really speak from the heart and do everything from the heart, like really give it pureness.
Right.
And and when I trust that whole process, it ends up being better than I ever thought it would ever be. It is really bigger than me. I think that this convention is something that is remarkable in a way where it is bigger than Boyce, it's bigger than me, it's bigger than Lawrence, it's bigger than the sum of all of us together. And who knows what the impact is going to be, but I'm just in the process. I'm a vessel. I'm just a vessel to live through, to the God presence in me, whatever it is. I really do meditate on that every time I open up my mouth to talk. I really want to be speaking every word that comes out of my mouth. I really want it to be dripping with divinity, for real, a Christ consciousness. It sounds really loopy and silly. I don't even know if I have the words to explain it, but that's what I meditate on every time I have to talk. When we do pillow talks, I close my eyes and I get into my delta brain wave pattern as much as I can, and I speak from that.
That's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that, and there's a practice of it, obviously.
Yeah, I do practice it.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to. And that's that's what your husband talks about, consciousness.
Really?
Consciousness on his podcast. Well, he does morning consciousness.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, it's everything about everything what you're talking about, everything that he talks about, everything that this whole convention is about, it's all about consciousness, because if you're not proactively conscious and working on your consciousnness, you will be programmed.
Oh, God, yes.
And that's just the bottom line. And that's what's so refreshing about this. And, when you asked me earlier, like, what drew, how did you find out about Boyce? And I think really what it comes down to is that I'm just attracted to people who are conscious.
Yes.
In whatever way that is. And once I hear it, it's obvious to me. And I just want to hear more. And I think that's why I'm sitting here with you.
Well, look at this.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, I mean, good grief.
Yeah, this is.
I appreciate you having me on. I
sure.
I didn't know where we were going and what we were talking about again. I'm just trying to let it all flow through me. But I really appreciate your invitation.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for tuning into the show. If you enjoy this podcast, make sure to subscribe to hear more compelling shows on Rhythm of Life, and keep an eye out for our upcoming series of how we as a society oftentimes incentivize all the wrong behavior here in the United States. We see this in the healthcare industry, in the media, and in our educational systems, to name a few of the fields we will be covering. If you have a moment, please leave a rating and review so more people can hear about us, and share about Rhythm of Life on social media, and like us on Facebook. Thanks for listening. I'm Steve Ordauer.
This has been a Rhythm and Light production.